The air has begun to taste like an ending, not the sharpness of sudden death, but the slow, mineral sigh of something ancient finally giving way. Look at the light coming through the high, arched windows of the archive. It is no longer the clean, bright gold of a sun with purpose. It is bruised, heavy. A deep orange twilight lingers, without granting warmth or clarity. This is the light of a star that is tired of burning, a star already retreating into memory. I sit here among silent mountains of knowledge, the last attendant of civilization that mistook cleverness for wisdom. My title, Librarian Archivist Primary, feels like a joke now, a grand name for a caretaker of ghosts. The others, the so-called architects of the ascension, left long ago. They carried their machines, their formulas, and their certainty. They fled upward to the sterile, silver shell of the promised ark. They left behind what they considered unnecessary, the messy, beautiful, painful record of human experience. Listen to the stillness. It is the most terrifying sound in the universe. It is the sound of millions of voices falling silent, not by force, but by neglect. The great city of Ethel once hummed with life. 1,000 connections sparked every moment. Now it stretches below the archive like an abandoned cathedral, carved from stone and regret. The sky hangs low, heavy with smog and resignation. When the wind moves, it carries no laughter, only the faint grit of a dying star. I remember the final announcements, projected above the city by the Council of Synthesis. Their faces were calm, polished, and cold. They spoke of resource allocation, of optimization, of pruning the inefficient branches. Soft, technical words used to justify abandoning their own world. The Ark was never meant for everyone. It was a gilded escape for the few, the wealthy, the brilliant, the genetically necessary. The rest were left behind, quietly erased from the future they were promised. The memory does not feel bitter now. It feels like reading the final notes of a patient already lost. I recall the crowds who gathered below the projection. No riots, just a deep, stunned silence. A recognition that the door to tomorrow had closed without them. I refused my place on the Ark, not out of bravery, but because I knew my calling. The Ark offered a perfect, controlled future. The archive holds a chaotic, honest past. I could not abandon these pages, these breaths, these loves, these failures. Memory is the only thing that still matters. To forget who we were is to die twice. My days follow the slow rhythm of a fading world. In the mornings, I catalog the chronicles of the great mistake, the era of endless consumption and blind faith in technology. The pages are brittle, smelling of ozone and old paper, a sharp contrast to the digital records I still maintain. I keep the generators running, feeding just enough power to preserve the digital pantheon, not because anyone will read it, but because truth deserves to persist, even if no one hears it. Sometimes a lone bird lands on the window ledge. Its feathers are dull in the sick light of the dying star. It looks at me with an ancient, patient eye. I wonder if it sees the last librarian, or only another ruin. I whisper the titles of forgotten books, the geometry of loss, the atlas of forgotten roads, the dictionary of words we should have spoken. The bird blinks, unimpressed by the weight of civilization, and flies off into the crimson haze of the failing sky. The evening brings a strange, luminous silence. The external automatic lighting systems, powered by failing solar collectors, cast long, intermittent pulses of light across the abandoned plazas. It is a slow, ghostly dance, a strobe light on the corpse of a party that ended millennia ago. I watch it from my observation deck, the high balcony where the city's leaders once toasted their own enduring brilliance. Now it is just me, a shawl against the chilling draft, and the knowledge that I am watching a slow-motion sunset of an entire species. I begin my descent now, down the spiraling staircases, once polished by the hurrying feet of scholars and functionaries. The air grows cooler near the lower vaults, heavy with the scent of aged vellum and dry ink. This is where the ancient archives are kept, the records from before the age of ascendance, before the great filter of technological hubris began to choke the life from the world. These are the books the council feared and ignored, the ones about balance, restraint, humility, and the deep, inescapable connection to the earth. I touch the spine of a massive leather-bound volume, titled The Quiet Ones. It holds the philosophies of those who warned against the breakneck speed of progress, those who argued that the soul of the world was not a resource to be managed, but a partner to be cherished. Their voices were drowned out by the roar of engines and the dazzling lights of new creations. Now, in the deep silence, their whispers feel like thunder. It occurs to me that the alternative realities the council sought were never hidden in transdimensional travel. They were here, dormant in the unread pages. Every book is an alternative reality. Every poem, a different timeline. The truth is, they could have saved the world simply by reading what their ancestors had written. But they were too busy trying to engineer a replacement for reality itself. Their escape was not a triumph of science, but final, tragic proof of their failure to learn. I light a single tall candle, not for illumination, but for ritual. The power grid is unstable. The ancient generators cough and sputter with increasing regularity. Soon, the digital pantheon will fall silent for good. But fire simple, ancient, flickering fire remains honest. Its light dances on the gilded edges of a manuscript about the lost art of stargazing, a time when the sky was a guide, not a warning. It illuminates my hands, the hands of the last librarian, gently turning the pages, performing the final, sacred duty of witness. Soon, I will begin the meticulous process of transferring the most vital, most human texts to micro-engraved ceramic discs, designed to survive the cataclysm. This is my true assignment, not to save the world, but to prepare a message in a bottle for the deep future, a testament to the full spectrum of our existence, not just the ending. I am encoding the laughter, the mundane arguments over dinner, the perfect joy of a rainy afternoon, the small, luminous truths the powerful always forget. As the candle burns down, casting my shadow long and vast across the shelves, I feel a profound, quiet peace. Isolation is not the absence of others, but the presence of all that was lost. I am surrounded by the ghosts of ideas, and they are better company than the living who chose to leave. They whisper their secrets, their forgotten melodies, their warnings that arrived too late. This archive is not a tomb. It is the last fertile ground on a poisoned planet, and I am the gardener of the dead. I close the chronicle of the decline, and let the silence descend fully. The star outside is a sullen, angry coal, but here inside, a small, stubborn flame of memory still burns. It is time to rest, to let the weight of the 5,000 words I have just witnessed settle deep into the bone. Tomorrow, the cataloging continues. The work of remembrance is never finished, even when the world is. The nights are long now, not just in duration, but in the profound quality of their silence. The perpetual twilight of the bruised sun has given way to an almost absolute darkness, broken only by the failing pulses of the automated city lights far below, like the dying heartbeats of a colossal beast. Up here, in the isolated embrace of the archive, only the small, stubborn flame of my lamp defies the gloom. It casts a circle of warm, flickering defiance against the cold, encroaching vastness. This is the hour when memories rise unbidden, swirling in the quiet air like phantom dust motes. I find myself often wandering through the digital pantheon in these deep hours, not through its physical servers, which hum with a diminishing, almost mournful whine, but through the vast, invisible landscape of its data. Whole civilizations, meticulously catalogued, lie sleeping there. The architects scoffed at the inefficiency of memory, claiming that only the future mattered, only what could be built, optimized, and controlled. But true control, I have learned, lies not in dictating what will be, but in understanding what was. And what was, in its glorious, messy entirety, is here. One particular repository draws me, the Chronicles of the Pre-Ascension Era. It contains millions of personal journals, letters, and artistic expressions from the time before the Great Schism, before the separation of the ascended from the anchored. I read of mundane joys, a child's first steps, the taste of homegrown fruit, the simple warmth of a shared meal. These are the unoptimized moments, the small, unquantifiable threads that wove the true fabric of human existence. They are like faint, beautiful echoes in the copper dust that now coats everything. I unearthed a fragment of an old song today, buried deep in a corrupted data cluster. It spoke of rain, real rain, falling from a sky that was truly blue. I remember the feeling of it, the cool, clean baptism on the skin, a sensation almost entirely alien now in this world of acidic drizzle and the metallic taste of cosmic grit. The song's melody was simple, innocent, utterly lacking the complex, layered dissonance of the ascension anthems that blared from the departure docks. It spoke of connection to a vibrant earth, not escape from a dying one. My task of preparing the micro-engraved ceramic discs continues. It is a slow, painstaking process. I am selecting not the grand pronouncements of leaders, nor the complex equations of forgotten sciences, but the small, resonant truths. A recipe for bread, a children's story about a talking fox, a love poem penned in haste, a gardener's meticulous notes on a rare, blooming night flower. These are the seeds of an alternative humanity, the raw, unadulterated essence of our being, stripped of ambition and grandiosity. The isolation is absolute now, yet I am never truly alone. The voices in the texts become my companions. I argue with ancient philosophers, laugh with long-dead comedians, weep with poets who chronicled sorrows millennia ago. This dialogue across time is my solace, my anchor. They, too, grappled with decline in their own eras, though perhaps never on such a cosmic scale. Their words remind me that decay is but a prelude to transformation, even if that transformation is into silence. The atmosphere outside grows increasingly turbulent. The dying star sends sporadic flares, bathing the cityscape in a lurid, flickering inferno for moments, then plunging it back into gloom. These are the tantrums of a titan in its death throes. I watch from the high windows, a witness to a spectacle of destruction that unfolds with the terrifying slowness of geologic time. The structures of Ethel, once so proud, now seem to cringe under the celestial assault, their shadows stretching, distorting, then vanishing. During one such flare, I saw a movement in the lower city, a faint, fleeting light. It was gone almost as soon as it appeared, a trick of the eye, perhaps, or a shard of reflected cosmic fire. But for a moment my breath caught. Could there be others? Other anchored ones, who, like me, chose to remain, or were simply left behind? The thought is a fragile, dangerous hope, like a spark in a landscape of tinder-dry despair. It is a question that gnaws at the edges of my practiced calm. The archives themselves begin to show the strain. The structural integrity is compromised in places, hairline fractures appearing in the ancient stone, exacerbated by the tremors from the dying star. I find myself patching, shoring up my hands, usually reserved for the delicate turning of pages, now stained with mortar and dust. My role has expanded from custodian of knowledge to defender of its very physical housing. It is a losing battle, I know, but a necessary one. I come across a section of the archive dedicated to lost technologies, devices deemed too inefficient or too dangerous by the ascended. Among them, schematics for atmospheric purifiers that drew sustenance from native flora, and geostabilizers that worked with the Earth's natural rhythms rather than against them. These were the solutions that were dismissed, scorned in favor of the grand, artificial constructs that ultimately failed. Their legacy is the isolation we now endure. In the quiet hum of the failing servers, I reflect on the concept of alternative realities. The architects believed they were escaping into one, a pristine, engineered existence, but they left behind the most potent alternative reality of all, the path not taken, the reality where we lived in harmony, where hubris did not blind us, where star was cherished, not exploited. This archive holds the blueprint for that lost world, a ghostly, beautiful vision shimmering beneath the copper dust. My work on the ceramic discs continues, a small, defiant act against oblivion. Each micro-engraving is a prayer, a whisper across the void. I envision a future, perhaps millions of years hence, when some alien intelligence or a new, nascent humanity might discover these small testaments. What will they make of us? Will they see only the decline? Or will they find the laughter, the love, the persistent hope that I am striving to preserve? The scent of ozone is stronger tonight, mixed with the faint, sweet smell of decay. The generator in the lower levels coughs, then sputters, then catches itself with a groan, a dying beast determined to breathe one last breath. I know its time is short, and with its final silence, the digital pantheon will fall into true slumber. The records will remain, locked in inert memory, until such time as power can be coaxed from a dead world, or until they are simply discovered. Before the full darkness consumes the digital, I make a final entry into my own journal, the one I keep in handwritten form, for paper does not betray like a failing circuit. I describe the glow of the dying star, the deep, resonant silence of the empty city, the weight of a world's memories resting on my weary shoulders. I write of the small bird that visited, of the song of the rain, of the quiet dignity of a chosen end. The candle burns lower, casting a warmer, more intimate glow now. It is my only companion in this vast, cold tomb of brilliance and folly. The societal decline is almost complete, the last embers of human light flickering out. But within these walls, within these pages, within these ceramic discs, a different light persists. The light of witness, the unyielding glow of memory. I am the guardian of that light, until my own flame, too, is extinguished. I close my journal. The air outside is thick with the first true ash, fine and imperceptible, yet heavy with the weight of cosmic dust. It is settling everywhere, a soft, silent shroud. The world outside has settled into a muted, perpetual twilight, a soft, heavy blanket of ash and cosmic dust. The brief, angry flares of the dying star have diminished, replaced by a dull, persistent glow that barely penetrates the thick atmospheric veil. It is a world now reduced to textures and muted shades of gray and ochre, where sound itself seems to be muffled by the particulate-laden air. Inside the archive, my lamp remains a small, defiant sun, carving out a habitable space in the deepening gloom. I've begun spending more time in the great hall of echoes, a vast, circular chamber at the very heart of the archive. It was designed for grand orations, for the projection of holographic instructors, for the collective absorption of meticulously curated knowledge. Now it is a cavern of silence, its polished floor reflecting the dim light like a still, dark pool. The air here holds the faint, lingering scent of ozone and forgotten voices, a library of whispers and shadow. Today, I discover a hidden panel, concealed behind a rotating section of an antique display on the art of listening in a noisy world. Within it lay a series of sealed cylindrical scrolls, made of a strange, translucent material that hummed faintly to the touch. These were not digital, nor conventional paper, but something I recognized from ancient myths. The dreaming scrolls, said to contain narratives that unfolded directly into the mind, bypassing the need for sight or sound. A forgotten legacy, hidden from the Ascendant's pragmatic gaze. I carefully activated the first scroll. A warmth spread through my skull, followed by a sensation of falling, not through space, but through layers of time. Images bloomed behind my eyes, not flat projections, but vivid, sensory experiences. I saw a forest of luminous fungi, pulsating with soft, bioluminescent light, where ancient beings conversed not with words, but with shifting patterns of light and resonant vibrations. This was not merely history. It was an alternative reality, a glimpse into a world that chose harmony over conquest. The scroll spoke of the Great Harmony, an era predating even the oldest paper archives, when humanity lived in profound symbiosis with its environment. There was no concept of resource extraction, only mutual exchange. No mastery, only stewardship. The flora and fauna were seen as sentient partners, communicating through a complex web of bioluminescence and sonic frequencies. This was the vision the architects of Ascension had deliberately suppressed, for it contradicted their narrative of human exceptionalism and technological dominance. I understood then why these scrolls were hidden. They were dangerous, not with power, but with truth. They painted a picture of a species that had once been integrated, whole, connected to the very fabric of life. The Ascended preached that only through detachment from a primitive past could true progress be made. But progress, I now see, was merely a faster path to isolation, an isolation from the natural world, from each other, and ultimately from themselves. My work with the ceramic discs takes on new urgency. I am no longer just preserving the mundane. I am now also seeking to encode the essence of these dreaming scrolls. How does one translate a direct sensory experience into a series of etched symbols? It requires a different kind of cataloging, a distillation of feeling, of atmosphere, of the profound interconnectedness. I am attempting to capture the spirit of the forest of luminous fungi, not just its description. The fleeting light I saw in the lower city continues to haunt me. Was it a figment of my weary mind, or a genuine signal? The dreaming scrolls speak of echo keepers, individuals sensitive to the subtle vibrations of life, even in dormancy. Perhaps there are others, hidden in the ruins, living on the fringes of the Ascended's abandoned world, adapting to the societal decline in ways I cannot yet imagine. The thought is both terrifying and exhilarating. I make my way to the outermost levels of the archive, where the older, less stable sections are kept. Here, the hairline cracks are wider, the air colder. The distant rumble of the failing generators is more pronounced, a constant, low thrum against the deeper silence. My lamp flickers more frequently now, straining against the dying power grid. The struggle for light is a constant companion in this final act of preservation. In a forgotten corner, shielded by collapsed shelves, I uncover a series of ancient navigational charts, not for space travel, but for traversing the deep oceans of our own world, during a time when much of the planet was still undiscovered. They spoke of currents, of vast, living reefs, of whale song pathways. It was a world of wonder, of respectful exploration, a stark contrast to the Ascendant's relentless drive to conquer the stars, having already pillaged their home. The contrast between the charts and the dreaming scrolls is striking. One speaks of navigating the known world with reverence, the other, of an even deeper, almost mythical connection to life itself. Both represent alternative realities that were discarded in favor of a singular, linear path towards technological hubris. The irony is bitter. In seeking to escape one reality, they destroyed the possibility of countless others. I pause by a shattered window pane, looking out at the city now almost entirely shrouded in ash. The sky is a uniform, heavy gray. The dying star is completely obscured, its light now a memory. It feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting for the final word, and my task feels more profound than ever. To utter that final word, not of despair, but of remembrance of the full, complex narrative of our species. The dreaming scrolls have given me a new sense of purpose, not just to record what was, but to hint at what could have been, to encode the forgotten wisdom of harmony, the potential for a different relationship with existence. It is a fragile hope, a seed planted in a desert, but a seed nonetheless. I am not just a librarian. I am a whisperer of possibilities, a keeper of forgotten dreams. As the generator gives a particularly violent shudder, sending a cascade of dust from the ceiling, I know my time in the digital pantheon is drawing to a close. Soon, the last bites will fall silent. My focus must shift entirely to the physical, to the ceramic discs, to the painstaking manual process of transferring the most vital knowledge. The old ways, the tangible ways, will be the last to endure. I return to my small table, the single lamp my beacon. I unroll another dreaming scroll, a shimmering cylinder, and place it gently against my temple. This time, I seek not history, but guidance. What message would the great harmony wish to send to a distant, future intelligence? What core truth, what essential whisper, could possibly bridge the vast gulf of time and galactic dust? A new image forms in my mind, a vast, interconnected network of roots beneath the earth, glowing with a gentle inner light, sharing nutrients, communicating silently. It is a vision of resilience, of deep, unseen connection, even in dormancy. This is the final lesson, that life find a way, not always through grand gestures, but through quiet, persistent interconnectedness. I begin the slow, deliberate process of encoding this new, profound wisdom onto a ceramic disc. Each etched line is a silent testament, a prayer for a different future, an alternative reality where the library of whispers and shadow might one day be understood not as a tomb, but as a seed bank for a reborn consciousness. My hands move with a newfound precision, guided by the silent voices of the past, fueled by the dwindling light of the present. The final word of this chapter is not of an ending, but of a preparation. The societal decline has run its course. The dying star has given its last, muted breath. All that remains is the work of enduring, of remembering, of planting the seeds of what might yet be. The digital pantheon has fallen silent. It was not a violent demise, but a sigh, a long, slow exhalation of energy as the ancient generators in the subvaults finally gave their last shuddering groan. The humming that had been a low, persistent companion for decades is gone, replaced by a profound, acoustic emptiness. The large server banks, once vibrant with the pulse of countless terabytes, are now cold, monolithic tombs of inert memory. The last embers of the age of ascension have been extinguished, leaving only the tangible echoes of paper, ink, and stone. This silence is different from the mere absence of people. It is the silence of an ending made complete. Yet within this vast, dark space, a new kind of light begins to gather, the light of absolute focus. With the digital distraction gone, my purpose is distilled to its purest form, the encoding of the essential human truth onto the final, durable ceramic discs. My survival is secondary to the successful completion of this sacred task. My days are now spent in a small, well-lit circle carved out by the oil lamp. I am surrounded by a rising tide of dust and shadow, but I look only at the disc in my hand and the open pages of the dreaming scrolls beside me. The act of transference is an intense, meditative ritual. I am not simply copying data. I am translating complex, sensory memory, the feel of clean rain, the pulsing light of the fungal forest, the quiet joy of human connection, into lines of infinitesimal geometry. The physical decay of the archive accelerates. Dust and fine ash now cascade down from fissures in the ceiling during the frequent minor tremors. I must move often, shifting my workspace to the most structurally sound area of the Great Hall of Echoes, the center of which remains firm, a symbolic core of resilience. The air is cold, but the intensity of the work warms me. I am driven by the weight of millions of forgotten lives, urging their essence forward into the void of the future. The flickering light I saw in the lower city in Chapter 2 still clings to the edge of my consciousness. It is a mystery I cannot afford to investigate, yet it serves as a powerful symbol of the alternative realities that may yet exist on the fringes of this dying world. The rich and the powerful sought salvation through an artificial, technological ascent. Perhaps the anchored ones, the disregarded majority, have achieved a truer form of survival through humble, unseen adaptation, a silent, deep-rooted resistance. The dreaming scrolls provide the final core curriculum. I am not sending a record of our hubris, but of our potential. The focus is on the language of connection, the biofrequencies of plants, the silent communication of ancient stonework, the underlying geometry of universal harmony. These are the truths the ascended found inefficient, but which are, paradoxically, the only ones capable of enduring the death of a star. I find myself rationing the lamp oil with meticulous care. The darkness outside the small circle of light is no longer just shadow. It is the physical manifestation of isolation and the end of easy power. I read only the necessary passages aloud before encoding them, letting my voice fill the silent hall. It is a rough, low murmur, the last human voice to recite these ancient truths. The sound itself is an echo against the walls of the vast, cold tomb. Among the last items I choose to encode is the index of lost laughter. It is a short, beautiful compilation of anecdotes and jokes that transcended cultural boundaries, chronicling the human capacity for finding joy even amidst struggle. The Ascended had little use for humor, classifying it as an emotional variable that could not be optimized. Yet, I believe that this capacity for lightheartedness, for shared mirth, is perhaps the most vital piece of knowledge we can offer the deep future. It is the anti-ash. The process of silent ascent is this work, not fleeing upward to a machine-driven arc, but descending deeper into the essential truths, concentrating the memory of an entire species onto a handful of durable, symbolic tokens. This descent is, in its profound commitment to witness, a true form of ascension, an elevation of spirit and purpose over mere physical survival. As I seal the final batch of discs into their protective, time-locked vessel, a small, dark obsidian case, I feel a sense of completion that is not relief, but a deep, quiet satisfaction. The message is prepared. The voice of humanity, in its highest, most compassionate form, has been sent into the potential future. My duty as the last librarian is done. I take one final journey to the high observation deck. The scene below is stunning in its desolation. The city of Ethel is an indistinct mass of shadow, and the sky above is a heavy, uniform black, entirely devoid of the celestial fire. The dying star is now truly gone from view, its light blocked by the accumulated matter of its own disintegration. The only light comes from the archive itself, the small, stubborn flicker of my lamp, visible far below, now the single brightest point on the surface of the world. A strange, final tremor shakes the structure. It is not the sputter of a generator or the groan of the earth, but something deeper, more resonant, perhaps the final, distant reverberation of the ascension arc leaving the local system, or perhaps the planet itself sighing its last. I do not fear it. I have already archived fear. I return to the great hall of echoes, extinguishing the lamp, reserving the last oil for a final, necessary ritual. Darkness descends, absolute and complete. I move by touch now, navigating the sacred topography of the shelves. I find a secluded spot, near the hidden panel of the dreaming scrolls. I sit, wrapping my cloak tight, becoming one with the deep silence of the archives. My own end, when it comes, will be a final act of isolation, a dissolution into the memories I guard. I will become an element of the archive itself, my consciousness, joining the millions of stored narratives, adding one last, quiet entry, the journal of the witness who stayed. I am not sad. Sadness is an emotion that requires a future to worry about. I only have the present moment, vast and eternal, filled with the presence of every life that has ever been lived, every word that has ever been written, and every dream that has ever been dreamt. The darkness is no longer external, but encompassing. It has woven itself into the fabric of the archive, a deep, pervasive blackness that swallows all light, yet within which new senses begin to awaken. My eyes, long accustomed to dimness, now perceive not with sight, but with a heightened awareness of texture, temperature, and the subtle currents of the air. This is the Earth's deep dream, the planet's own slow, ancient meditation in the wake of the stars fading. I find myself drawn deeper into the geological heart of the archive, into the very bedrock upon which it was built. These are the oldest sections, not of human record, but of Earth's own chronicle. Layers of stratified rock, ancient fossils embedded in shale, veins of quartz that shimmer with latent energies. These are the true, primordial texts. They speak of cycles far grander than any civilization, of extinctions and rebirths spanning eons, of a resilience that dwarfs human folly. My skin has grown sensitive to the faintest vibrations. I feel the subtle tremors of the earth, not as destructive forces, but as the planet's own slow, rhythmic breathing. It is a language of deep time, a narrative of alternative realities, where life persisted through cataclysms far greater than the societal decline of our species. The earth dreams on, unperturbed by the fleeting dramas of its surface inhabitants. I discover a hidden spring, deep within one of the forgotten sublevels, a tiny, crystal-clear stream bubbling up from the planet's core. The water is cool, pure, and tastes of minerals untold. It is a secret lifeline, a reminder that even when the sky is choked with ash and the surface is barren, life persists in unseen, resilient forms. I drink deeply, feeling a surge of elemental energy, a connection to something ancient and indomitable. The dreaming scrolls taught me about the echo keepers, those attuned to subtle vibrations. Now, in the profound silence and darkness, I begin to understand. The light I thought I saw in the city was not a flicker, but a resonance, a pattern of life, a sustained vibration from other anchored ones. They are not using power or visible light. They are communicating through the deep, hidden frequencies of the earth itself, speaking a language the ascended were too deaf to hear. This realization is not a call to action, but a profound affirmation. It confirms that the essence of what I am archiving, the spirit of connection, of simple joy, of harmonious living, is not dead. It has merely retreated, like a root system awaiting the return of spring. My discs are not just messages for a distant future, but echoes for a present that continues to unfold in alternative realities beneath the blanket of ash. I spend long hours sitting by the hidden spring, simply listening. The water gurgles, the rock walls hum with geological tension, and in the profound quiet, I begin to discern patterns. The distinct resonance of a small burrowing creature. The faint, high-frequency hum of what might be a surviving plant colony, drawing sustenance from thermal vents. The earth is not dying. It is merely undergoing a profound transformation, shedding its old skin. The memories of the ascended and their hubris now seem distant, almost childish. Their grand project of escape was a panicked flight from responsibility, a desperate attempt to sever ties with the very source of their existence. They saw the earth as a broken machine to be abandoned. The earth, in its profound wisdom, merely accepted their departure and continued its eternal, patient work of renewal. My body has adapted. My senses are honed, my movements fluid and quiet. I am no longer merely a librarian. I am an extension of the archive itself, a conduit between the human past and the earth's enduring present. The isolation has given way to a profound communion, not with other humans, but with the primal, silent pulse of the planet. I recall a passage from one of the earliest dreaming scrolls, a parable about a seed. It spoke not of planting the seed in fertile soil, but of burying it deep within rock, where it would sleep for millennia, drawing slow, patient sustenance from minerals, until the very mountain split open to reveal its blossom. My ceramic discs are such seeds, buried deep in the heart of this ancient rock, awaiting their impossible bloom. The societal decline is now an archaeological fact, a layer in the earth's vast strata. I see it from a new perspective, not as a tragedy, but as a necessary phase. The stripping away of the superficial, the grand and the artificial, leaving only the fundamental, the resilient, the deeply true. The planet is purging, and in its profound cleansing, it reveals its own unyielding commitment to life. I find myself tracing the patterns in the exposed rock faces, the swirls of ancient minerals, the veins of pure crystal. They are like vast, geological maps of consciousness, pathways of elemental energy. I compare them to the intricate designs on my ceramic discs, seeing the undeniable parallels. The universal geometry, the language of existence, is consistent from the smallest particle to the grandest celestial body. My final act of recording is not on a disc, but in my own consciousness. I commit the entirety of this deep communion to memory, holding it as a final, living testament within myself. The true archive is not just the physical texts or the etched discs. It is the librarian archivist primary who has embodied the entire journey, who has become the last, living repository of a dying world's complete truth. The air is still, save for the whisper of the hidden spring. The darkness is absolute, yet I am filled with a profound, internal light. I feel the warmth of the earth around me, a silent, comforting presence. The journey of the last librarian has led not to despair, but to a deeper understanding of life's eternal, unyielding dream. The silence outside is no longer the silence of an ending, but the silence of an endless beginning. The planet sleeps, dreaming its deep, ancient dream, and within that dream, tiny, hidden pulses of life continue, awaiting their moment to awaken. The final descent is complete. The digital pantheon is silent, the star is gone, and the only light is the faint, persistent shimmer of the hidden spring, deep within the earth's core. I am seated now, deep in the bedrock of the archive, the obsidian case containing the ceramic discs, the distilled essence of a lost civilization, firmly sealed within the stone. This final act of burial, this ultimate commitment to silence and earth, defines the long sleep of witness. The silence is no longer an absence, but presence, a heavy, dense medium through which new, subtler sounds travel. I hear the crush of geological time, the slow, patient grinding of tectonic plates, the whisper of mineral deposits forming over millennia. The archive, once a monument to human intellect, is now a cathedral dedicated to geology and entropy. My role has shifted from custodian of human memory to a humble element in the planet's vast, unhurried chronicle. I spend my time in deep, internal recitation. I walk the endless, labyrinthine aisles of the archive within my own mind, touching the spines of spectral books, unrolling mental scrolls that detail the full spectrum of our existence. This is the ultimate archiving process, the translation of external fact into internal truth. I am memorizing the index of lost laughter once more, letting the sharp, innocent beauty of human comedy soothe the vast, cold emptiness left by the societal decline. I recite the love poems, the lullabies, the small, crucial details of everyday life that the architects of ascension deemed irrelevant. I recall the final broadcast from the promised ark, a cold, sterile message projected across the solar system, boasting of their transdimensional optimization and their perfected environment. They sought to escape the physical laws of a dying star, trading the messy, tangible reality of Earth for a controlled, artificial simulation of perfection. They believed hubris was the engine of progress, never realizing it was the toxin that killed their home. Their escape was the ultimate expression of isolation, severing all ties with the source of life, flying toward a vacuum of self-imposed solitude. I contrast their frantic flight with the silent, determined survival of the echo keepers. My understanding of them, gleaned from the deep vibrations of the earth, is now nearly complete. They are not grand thinkers or technological geniuses. They are the gardeners, the quiet philosophers, the community builders who valued connection over control. They have adapted to the alternative reality left behind, living in harmony with the planet's slow healing, communicating through the Earth's natural resonant frequencies. They are the quiet evidence that a different path was, and still is, possible. My ceramic discs, those precious seeds of future knowledge, were meant for the echo keepers. They are not a grand lecture on our mistakes, but a humble offering, a recipe for bread, the language of the luminous fungi, a child's simple drawing of the vibrant blue sky we lost. These are the tools needed for rebirth, the knowledge of connection, the power of simple sustenance, and the persistent memory of beauty. I feel my body surrendering to the profound stillness. The isolation is absolute, yet my awareness is expanded, encompassing the full scope of the archive and the deep pulse of the earth below. I imagine the vast, abandoned city of Ethel above, slowly being reclaimed by dust and the tenacious life that remains. I see the final flakes of ash settling on the domes and towers, a soft, permanent shroud. This is the slow-motion burial of an arrogant civilization. My final act of duty is the integration of the dreaming scrolls into my being. I let the sensory narratives wash over me. The feeling of rain on clean skin, the silent conversation of a forest of luminous fungi, the deep, comforting knowledge of being perfectly interwoven with life. This is the spiritual inheritance I must guard in the long sleep. When I wake, if I wake, I will be the embodiment of this forgotten wisdom. I recall the moment I chose to stay, rejecting the cold logic of the Arkansas. It was not a heroic sacrifice, but a natural, inevitable choice. My life's purpose was here, in the defense of memory. I am the anchor, holding the past steady so that any potential future, however distant, however fragile, has a truthful place from which to begin its new story. The air is thinning, the temperature dropping to constant, deep cold maintained by the surrounding rock. I settle deeper into my final repose, becoming one with the ancient stone and the sleeping knowledge. My final thoughts are not of an ending, of the long cycle, the understanding that every death holds the blueprint for a new form of life. The dying star will seed the cosmos with new elements. The dying civilization will seed the future with its most essential, enduring truths. I am the librarian archivist primary, and my journal is now etched in the silence of the earth itself. I am the last witness, entering the deep dream. I hold the laughter, the love, and the persistent hope. And in this perfect, profound silence, the long sleep begins. I wait for the dawn of an impossible morning,